Good evening. I'll call this Sebastian City Council meeting to order. If you would all rise for the invocation that this evening will be led by Pastor Todd Thomas from the Sebastian Christian Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance that will be led by Vice Mayor Kinchin.
Thank you for the opportunity. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this beautiful community that we get to call home. And Father, for this group of people who govern over it. Lord, we know that you are the ultimate source and resource of wisdom and guidance. And so I would ask that you would direct the affairs tonight. Father, that your sovereign will be done on this community. Father, be with our leadership, be with those who serve this community, protect all of our police and firefighters and other emergency responders, Father, as they go about their daily jobs. And once again, Father, we give you all the glory and thanks and honor due you. In the name of Christ, I pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you, Pastor. Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill.
Here.
Vice Mayor Kitchen. Here. Councilmember Dodd.
Here.
Councilmember Iovino.
Here.
Councilmember McPartline.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, leads us to item 5, agenda modifications. There's been a request by the applicant to remove item 9C, and I will do that with unanimous consent. 9C. Are there any other agenda modifications this evening? We all set with that? Mm-hmm. All right, thank you. All right, leads us up to proclamations, awards, and brief announcements. And we have a lot on the agenda tonight, so I will bring my cheat sheet down here. So first of all, there are very few honors given to the mayor than to be able to provide some recognition to the great police officers we have here in the city of Sebastian. And for that this evening, we have a couple of very special individuals up here. And we will start with Officer Andrew Evans.
On March 30th, 2018, Officer Evans responded to an agency assist at one of our local restaurants where a 61-year-old male collapsed from a massive heart attack and was unresponsive and did not have a pulse. Officer Evans arrived on scene and immediately began heart compressions and CPR. He also utilized his AED, which delivered a shock to the male on the ground. Officer Evans continued administering CPR and also shocking the male until EMS arrived. EMS was able to transport the male to our local hospital where he underwent further medical treatment. And because of Officer Evans' quick actions and everything he did, the male survived this incident. So with that, I present a life-saving award to Officer Evans.
On Sunday, July 15th this year, at approximately 11:15 in the morning, Corporal Rivas was on patrol on Indian River Drive. While on patrol, approaching the area of the Tiki Bar, he heard or observed an older subject on the ground and another subject that was making a phone call. The subject was just initiating his 911 call. Corporal Rivas rolled up just as the event was occurring. Recognizing the incident as a medical emergency, Corporal Rivas quickly obtained his AED and went to assess the 67-year-old subject. After the initial evaluation, determining that the subject was absent of pulse, CPR was initiated, then the AED was utilized where a shock was administered. Corporal Rivas began CPR for a few sets until assisting officers arrived. The unresponsive subject started showing signs of breathing, but CPR continued. Indian River Fire Rescue arrived, at which time the subject had regained a pulse. Contact was made with medical staff, and they stated over at Sebastian River Medical Center that due to the prompt medical attention by the first responder and utilizing the AED, the 67-year-old subject's life did not end that day. Follow up with that, we got a correspondence from a family member who wanted to extend their sincere, heartfelt gratitude and thanks to the Sebastian Police Department, especially Officer Rivas. I know you are the reason he is still alive, and with his 3 daughters and 5 grandchildren who love him dearly. Your quick thinking and immediate response to help my father, Benny, is no doubt what saved his life. And we're fortunate to have such brave men and women working for us. And with that, I present the life-saving award to Corporal Richie Rivas.
Am I lying when I say we have the best? I mean, these guys are amazing. Sebastian has an amazing police force. They give back so much, and I'm sure they'll tell you that day they were doing their jobs, but to stand up like the way you guys did and to get it done, you know, that's very special. And I, as the mayor, and I know the council backs me up, and we appreciate everything you guys and everyone in the force does. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
If I may.
Please.
I just wanted to thank the guys and men and women of the Sebastian Police Department as well, and just point out that the AED plays a big part in this. In a time where law enforcement is a lot of times in a negative light, it goes to show you that these guys will put their go above and beyond and put their lives out there and do what needs to be done in a quick instance. And I can't say how proud I am of these guys to not only have one incident of an AED use, but actually 2. Keep in mind, these are very easy instruments to use. You don't have to have a lot of training in order to use them. We have them in town hall, or in city hall, excuse me. A lot of the police departments have them in their patrol cars. And Chief, if I'm not mistaken, we have them in all the patrol cars. So even if you're not sure if it needs to be used or not, it's pretty easy to operate. And if you see it, grab it and use it. Thank you.
All right, thanks again, guys. All right, that will lead us to a proclamation declaring September as Hunger Action Month in Sebastian, Florida. I'm sorry, Hunger Awareness Month. And this will be accepted by Rebecca Rodriguez, Tarina Romero from the Treasure Coast Community Food Bank. How you doing? I got the proclamation wrong. I didn't have my glasses on, so I do that sometimes. Hi, how are you? And I love the orange tie. It's very nice.
Thank you.
Whereas hunger and poverty remain issues of grave concern in the United States, the state of Florida, and the Treasure Coast, and the city of Sebastian, with 20,820 children and adults in Indian River County now categorized as food insecure. And whereas the city of Sebastian is committed to working with the Treasure Coast Food Bank in mobilizing people about the role and importance of food banks and other hunger relief organizations, and by bringing attention to the need to devote more resources to hunger issues. And whereas food banks and hunger relief organizations across the country, including the Treasure Coast Food Bank, coordinated Hunger Action Day on September 13th, 2018, and will continue to host numerous events throughout the month to shed light on the important issues and encourage involvement in efforts to end hunger in our local community. Now, therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Sebastian, Florida, do hereby proclaim September as Hunger Action Month in Sebastian and call this observance to the attention of our citizens. Thank you.
So on behalf of our board of directors, staff, and volunteers, we thank you all for proclaiming September as Hunger Action Month. Treasure Coast Food Bank is the largest hunger relief organization on the Treasure Coast, and we are the only food bank on the Treasure Coast. Sadly, we serve approximately 100,000 individuals per week who do not know where their next meal is coming from, and that includes approximately 26,000 children. So we could not do this critical work without you all and our partner agencies. We work with about 300 partner agencies along the Treasure Coast and are able to provide food and other non-essentials to vulnerable populations who, some just, we live in a seasonal community. Wages go down in the summer and people still have mortgages and children to feed. So hunger does not discriminate, and we all know from last year's hurricane the devastation that we all were affected by, and we're just here to help the community and help empower these individuals. So if you'd like to get involved, our website is stophunger.org. Orange, it represents the color of hunger. So again, thank you all for wearing that today, and thank you for recognizing this need.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Our next proclamation is for School Attendance Awareness Month, which will be September 2018, and this will be accepted by Principal Dariel Brown and student Caleb, how do you say your last name? Is Caleb here? Arsentellis. Is Caleb here? Now they're absent. Now, just so you all know, the reason this student is receiving this award is because they had perfect attendance. So that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? All right. Okay, thank you. This is a proclamation designating the month of September 2018 as Attendance Awareness Month, whereas chronic absences, missing 10% or more of school, or just 2 or 3 days a month for any reason, is a proven predictor of academic trouble and dropout rates. And whereas chronic absences predict lower third-grade reading proficiency, course failure, and eventual dropout, and it weakens our communities and local economy. And whereas schools and community partners can reach out more frequently to absent students to determine why they are missing school and what would help them attend more regularly. And whereas chronic absences can be significantly reduced when schools, parents, and communities work together to monitor and promote good attendance and address hurdles that keep children from getting to school. Now, therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Sebastian, Florida, do hereby proclaim that our city will stand with the nation in recognizing September as Attendance Awareness Month and commit to focusing on reducing chronic absenteeism to give all children an equitable opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive academically, emotionally, and socially. Thank you. Thank you.
I accept the award, or the proclamation, on behalf of Caleb Arsentellis. Outstanding young man. Sorry he couldn't be here tonight. One of our goals as Sebastian River High School is basically to make sure that our students are not only on time but show up every day to make sure that they're committed to their academics. Just in looking at our statistics now, we are at a 94% rate of attendance with 1,921 students that's in attendance at our school. So that's a pretty big accomplishment. So thank you very much, Mayor Hill, and I appreciate it. All right.
Our next proclamation will be for Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2018, and this will be accepted by Holly Hamilton from the Daughters and Children of the American Revolution. You'll be up here for a couple of these, aren't you? Right. Good to see you. Constitution Week, September 17th through the 23rd, 2018. Whereas September 17th, 2018 marks the 213th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America by the Constitutional Convention, and whereas it's fitting and proper accord to officially recognize this magnificent document, its memorable anniversary, and the patriotic celebrations which will commemorate the occasion. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating the week in which September 17th falls as Constitution Week. Now, therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of the city of Sebastian, Florida, do hereby proclaim September 17th through the 23rd, 2018 as Constitution Week in the city of Sebastian, and ask our citizens to reaffirm the ideals the framers of the Constitution held in 1787 by diligently protecting our freedoms guaranteed to us through this guardian of our liberties, remembering that lost rights may never be regained.
Thank you. My name is Holly Hamilton. I'm a member of both the Treasure Coast Daughters of the American Revolution and the Children of the American Revolution. I run that group. And I'm just so thankful to the city. They issue the proclamation for us so that we can remember this every year. There's a nice display that's in the library. If you see that, that's a joint effort between the Daughters and the Children of the American Revolution. So thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Stand by. And there's probably no more important document, so this is very fitting. Next, Inflammatory Breast Cancer Awareness Month, which is October 2018. Whereas inflammatory breast cancer, IBC, is a rare but very aggressive type of breast cancer in which the cancer cells block the lymph vessels in the skin and breast. And whereas individuals with IBC may experience symptoms such as redness, swelling, shooting pain, persistent itching, and warmth, which may appear virtually overnight. And where IBC usually grows in nests or sheets, without the usual lump women are told to look for, and because there is no lump, IBC is rarely detected by mammograms. And the treatment for IBC differs from other breast cancer treatments, therefore a physician with IBC experience is essential. And whereas increasing public understanding of IBC is the first step toward fighting this devastating disease, and the Hunt for Hope Florida was established to raise funds which will be donated 100% to Grant for Research. And the 6th annual Hunt for Hope Florida will be held on September 29th, 2018 in Sebastian, Florida. Now, therefore, I, Jim Hill, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as the mayor of City Sebastian for the 6th time tonight, do hereby proclaim October 18th as Inflammatory Breast Cancer Awareness Month and urge all citizens to learn more about IBC.
I think he said the mouthful there. I'm really thankful to this community. This is our 6th year hosting it's a scavenger hunt through town. We involve a lot of local businesses that donate items to our raffle and money towards our event. We work with the IBC network, which is 100% volunteer, so that they can donate all of the money to grants. They've funded over $1 million in about 8 years they've been around without the help of any major cancer societies, all from local donors and businesses. So we appreciate the community support in this. If you want to come down, it actually is changed to the 30th, which is Sunday the 30th, at the Big Pavilion in Riverview Park, and it'll be from 1 to 6 in the afternoon. Come hunt or come hang out. Either way, we're glad to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Brief announcements, please.
We have 2 announcements on our agenda. The first is asking you to please participate in the 1st annual First Responders Fall Cook-Off, Saturday, September 15th, from 4:30 to 9:30 at the Indian River County Fairgrounds. And tickets in the Sebastian area are at Seacoast Bank, and there are 2 locations in Vero, Walking Tree Brewery and Sean Ryan Pub. So come out and support our first responders at that one. Also, here in our council chambers on September 21st, the Chamber of Commerce is sponsoring an opioid crisis summit from 1 to 4 here in the chambers. So if you want to come to that, there are a lot of very good speakers, and you're going to learn a lot about the opioid crisis and what we can do to resolve it. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Vice Mayor. Council, I unfortunately have to announce the passing of a former city council member. You know, it seems like I'm doing this an awful lot lately, and it's very unfortunate. But recently, Don Wright, previous city council member here in Sebastian, had passed away, and you know, we all had the opportunity, I believe, except for Mr. Iovino, to work with Mr. Wright in various fashions or forms, and I, for one, would say that he was a very stand-up, professional individual who really cared deeply about the city of Sebastian. Don Wright cared deeply for the quality of life enjoyed by the residents of Sebastian by serving on many civic organizations and the city's Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, the MPO Citizens Advisory Committee, and then serving on the Sebastian City Council in 2009. Don became the vice mayor from 2010 to 2013. He was a champion of initiatives to stimulate the business development, to help develop the city's parks, and worked to protect the Indian River Lagoon. Don worked tirelessly to improve our quality of life, and he will truly be missed. And that is a true statement. He will truly be missed. Don was someone who worked vigorously to make Sebastian a better place, and his presence will be missed in this community. Are there any further announcements? All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to recess the City Council meeting and convene as the Board of Adjustments. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Kitchen. Here. Mr. Dodd.
Here.
Mr. Iovino.
Here.
Mr. McPartlin.
Here.
Chairman Hill.
Here.
Thank you.
I'll now call for a motion on the minutes from the previous meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. It leads us to the quasi-judicial hearing. I shall open the hearing, and this is on the Reeves residential fence. Mr. Carlo.
Therian pool.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Oh, we're going to do the Thering pool enclosure. That's right. I apologize. Go ahead.
So, Mr. Mayor, if we could have the clerk swear in the witnesses, but if y'all could do any ex parte communications. Is that where we're at? Oh, you read the title. Sorry.
Okay. The first item is a variance requested from section 54-2-7.5B1A of the Sebastian Land Development Code to allow construction of a portion of a pool screen enclosure 7.3 feet from the rear property line and to encroach into a stormwater maintenance easement, whereas the code requires such enclosure to maintain a minimum distance of 10 feet from the property line and not be located in a dedicated easement.
All right, thank you, Council. At this time, would anyone have any ex parte communication to disclose?
I have none.
All right, seeing none, I would ask now the city clerk to swear in all who provide testimony this evening.
Those who are going to give testimony, would you stand and raise your right hand? Is the applicant here? Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and the factual representation which you are about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Yes. Thank you.
All right, thank you. At this time, the applicant has the opportunity to make a presentation on his request. It's time. Is the applicant here? All right. Staff and findings?
I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Bosworth. She's been working with the applicant on this, and she has all the backup information. So, Ms. Story.
We have been working with the pool contractor as representative of the homeowner, Mr. Theron. We were approached as they were beginning their construction of their pool, which they have received a permit from the City of Sebastian Building Department showing, as shown in Exhibit B, that they were going to meet the 10-foot setback. As the form boards were placed and they presented us with a form board survey of where the pool deck was going to be poured, which shows on Exhibit A, they discovered that they were encroaching into not only the setback, but also a stormwater management easement, a private stormwater management easement that's for the subdivision itself. It is not a dedicated easement for the city. They applied for an application, an application for a variance. They have submitted pictures of what the form boards that have been constructed on the property already. Usually, contractor error doesn't necessarily is applicable criteria for a variance. But this is, you could consider that the nature of the rear property line is a curved property line. It lends accessibility to possibly have that error of setting those form boards and getting it right at 10 feet. Staff was also concerned because there is the encroachment into the easement. And so before we considered our recommendation, we did request if they could receive approvals from any of the entities that the easement was dedicated to, which is the Mosquito Control District. We wanted to hear something from St. John's and the HOA. We did receive letters from all of those entities that are part of your packet. Staff is recommending approval of this variance with a couple of conditions, one that's not noted in your staff report. The letter that came from the HOA requested a condition that the profile of the lake slope remain consistent with the originally approved plan. So if there's any, throughout construction or anything based on how they final grade that, it should remain the same as when the subdivision was approved. There were some concerns, possibly from some HOA and the subdivision members, of what type of liability would occur to them when the subdivision was handed over to them. And in discussion with a representative of the HOA, Mr. Fisher, they had contacted and reached out to us this afternoon and requested a second condition be added, that a complete release of liability prepared by the HOA attorney to be executed and recorded before continuation of the pool construction begin. So we would get something from the homeowner signed that if anything happens to the lake slope or anything to his pool itself, being that it's closer to the water, that he would be completely liable for any type of repairs or damage to his property. And with that, staff recommends approval. You also have a letter from them, from the applicant, on how they feel they meet the criteria of the variance request. Staff has ours. We recommend approval with the 2 noted conditions.
All right, thank you. Council, at this time, do we have any questions of staff? Go ahead,
Did they
Albert.
sign the 2 stipulations or no?
Pardon me?
Did they sign the 2 HOA requests?
This kind of came to light this afternoon. The attorney for the HOA will prepare the document,
Okay.
Attorney Warren Dill, and then he will present it to Mr. Fisher. They will get the homeowner to sign that. We're recommending that be executed and recorded before continuation of the construction, the next inspection.
But you're of the
happens.
mindset that he will sign it without any issues, correct?
We have not spoken to the applicant or the homeowner, but
Okay.
it's a recommended condition.
Thank you.
Who's responsible for maintaining the lake and for cutting the grass around the lake and so forth?
It's a private subdivision, so the HOA, I don't have the exact verbiage from their covenants and deed restrictions and subdivision documents.
Okay.
But the easement, the stormwater maintenance easement, is dedicated to the HOA specifically in their plat.
Yeah, because they'll have a bigger problem if they don't put this footer in correctly than they will if they do put it in with the easement, because there's no way they're going to be able to protect that pad from creating a problem on that slope, and it's going to constantly be dropping. So the footers are needed to do it. It was kind of concerning to me that the reason they're asking for the variance is that their pool contractor messed up on his layout. And it seems to me that the pool contractor has some liability on this. And I don't have an overall issue with granting a variance, because without the footers, that pool pad is in trouble, and so is the lakefront. So the footers need to be put in. Has there been any opportunity to try to get the applicant to go back to his contractor? And I mean, has that conversation taken place in the city, saying you create a problem, fix it before we
We've
give
been
you this?
working with actually the Loudon Pools, the pool contractor. He's the one that requested the variance. I'm sure there would be some financial burden. And like I say, usually that isn't what would create the criteria to grant a variance, but there were some other considerations. It is a private subdivision. There isn't a house behind them. And even though there have been other properties on the cul-de-sacs with the radius, the curved backyard that have gotten pools in there, again, we took consideration that we had received okays from the different entities, and it was a private subdivision.
Okay. And also, this isn't the first variance on the cul-de-sac lots in that subdivision, is it? We've done this before?
I've not.
Oh,
no,
okay.
know.
I thought I read that there had been other variances on
No,
cul-de-sac.
we did another pool variance last year. It was regarding the gentleman that had a handicapped child. They had a special arm for a chair that went in the water, kind of a different situation.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Right, now, and that was in a different subdivision also. I do have a couple of questions. Now, the excuse is that the pool company messed up here and built the spa essentially on the easement line. Is that correct?
I believe in your pictures, the round spa that's there already is within the setback.
Mm-hmm.
It's the amount of deck on the outside of that to support that
Right.
has actually gone into that. And again, the other consideration was it was just at one point that
Mm-hmm.
it's actually the 2.7 feet encroachment. It does gradually reduce down to 0.3. But yes, it's the pool patio that's needed for support of that spa that's there. The spa itself is within the setback.
Right, so the city easement is essentially something that really is unnecessary. We don't have any need for that easement, or do we?
It's not a city easement. It's not been dedicated to the city. It's a private stormwater maintenance easement.
Right.
It's dedicated to the HOA, the Mosquito Control District. It's only mentioned in the city that we are able to access it if for emergency repairs.
So essentially, the city, we are allowed to enter St. John's easement or the HOA's easement. This is their easement.
Correct.
And the HOA has approved this variance.
We have received a letter from a representative of the HOA, yes.
Okay, so the HOA has approved, St. John's has approved. Has there been any, other than residents of the community, has there been any agencies that have said this could cause problems in the future?
Nobody that's reached out to us, correct.
Okay.
Now, if this was a city easement, we could have also gone through the abandonment of easement process.
Right.
But it's not our easement, and that's why we couldn't go forward with that application.
Right. Okay, so how did they get to the point of having the spa constructed that close to that line, knowing, I suppose they didn't know that it couldn't be that close, but how did they get to the point of having the spa completely constructed and then having to come back to the city? Did they show the plans that have no space between the deck and the easement, or the spa and the
It's
easement?
Exhibit B in your packet. That was the plan that was presented with the building permit,
Right.
showing that it would be 10.3 feet from the property line.
Right. But
So granted, 0.3 is their little wiggle room that they had, but many pools in Sebastian go right to their 10-foot setback line.
Sure, and that would not
we
be a
usually don't
problem.
require a form board survey for that, but I think because it was a curved line, they had their surveyor shoot that survey for that form board, and it was discovered before it was poured that there was an encroachment.
Okay, and so this is one lot on this subdivision. It was an empty lot. A home was built, the pool was built on this lot, and it was not, it was in the easement. They need us to grant this variance on this specific lot. How is it that if we go forward on all of those additional lots that are shaped exactly like this, we can't have someone come in and say, folks, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask that we be silent while we have this discussion, okay? Thank you very much. So how is it that we're going to get, that this lot will be allowed to encroach 2.3 feet? Is that what it is? 2.7 feet? And then the next time the pool guy messes up, it's 2.85, but it's just a couple more inches maybe, or a foot. How does the city have a standing to say that we're only going to allow it on this lot, don't do it again? You know, you guys messed up this time, but we'll get you next time.
We have always looked at variances as a case-by-case application, and that is why there are 9 or 10 criteria that the board is to consider that they meet that criteria. And not necessarily saying that you have to meet all 9 of those, but if the majority of that criteria is met, it is your decision on
So they meet all
but it's always a
but one.
case-by-case variance.
So in the opinion of the city, they meet all but one of the criteria, and that criteria being this was caused by someone else, essentially.
Yes, and that's staff determination, and it's up to the board to determine if you agree with our determination. We also request that our applicants also respond to that 9 criteria, which is in your packet, and that's their view of how they're meeting or not meeting that criteria. And we give you both so that you can decide and determine if you feel they
Oh, sure. Yeah, thank you for that. And then the final question, I suppose, would be, when we dealt with the last home that was asking for a variance from the city with the HOA, the city did not look at that as us fighting for the HOA. The city was just simply looked at it as an individual homeowner. And so when we look at these HOAs, we in the past have said, well, that's a beef you have to have with your HOA. It's not with the city. If I'm not mistaken, when we granted that variance.
Yes, the HOA representative was also there too.
That's right.
They'd gotten up and let us know, but I think it was stated by somebody in council that what is being looked at is the variance from the city code.
That's right.
And if there was still an issue that the HOA did not feel the variance of the variance should be granted, it was more of a civil matter between them and the property owner.
Okay, very good. Any more questions from council? All right. At this time, I'm going to take anyone who's in favor of this variance to please stand up and come to the podium. We'll have about 5 minutes to speak. And during this time, we're going to ask that there are no applause, no boos, no hisses, none of those things that disrupt meetings. We want people to be comfortable to speak. So anyone in favor, please come forward. All right, seeing none, I will now ask anyone who's opposed to come forward to the podium. State your name, where you live, and you'll have about 5 minutes.
Good evening.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Probably a bunch of us.
We're gonna speak one at a time?
Yes.
Okay.
We can, or however y'all want it.
Well, we can speak one at a time, but I would ask that we don't be repetitive in our statements.
we
That
kinda
we
cover it.
try to stick to facts,
Yep.
understanding that you guys are probably neighbors, and so
Yep.
you understand you have a beef. But if we could keep it as short as possible.
We will.
I would very much appreciate that.
Problem.
All right, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Wendy Kirby Barnes. I'm a full-time resident and homeowner at Cross Creek Lake Estates. I'm also a recently appointed board member of our HOA as of our annual meeting on July 26, 2018. I was appointed by Henry Fisher, the developer and president of Cross Creek Lake Estates HOA. The requested pool variance for Lot 8, Block 3, otherwise known as 108 McCanopy Path, Sebastian, Florida, 32958, is not, and I mean not, in the best interest of our community. I am speaking as a board member who was not made aware of this issue and as a homeowner. Allowing this variance of the pool spa and its enclosure to encroach upon the lake easement is a gross violation to all of us in the community and only sets us up for future disputes with homeowners seeking variances to encroach upon set easements and building restriction lines. Allowing this variance will set up our HOA for any liabilities should their pool fail and cause damage to the lake embankment and to the lake. Mr. Fisher did call me later this evening telling me about that, this homeowner is going to sign this and future homeowners who buy this home will sign this. They have not done that, nor would I as a homeowner sign that, but that's to be seen. This is unacceptable, and Mr. Fisher should not have taken it upon himself to send such an approval letter out on behalf of the HOA, subjecting the HOA to such a liability. The pool company and/or other individuals involved with the measurements and layout of this pool are the ones who should be held accountable and liable to make the corrections. A request for this type of variance is not reasonable and does not set the type of precedent we want to have to uphold or defend in our community once the developer is no longer a part of our community. Mr. Fisher is our developer. He still runs our HOA. An HOA has rules and regulations to protect everyone, and this is why we are here today, to protect our community from gross negligence on the part of contractors and those thinking that, oh, it's just 3 feet. Everyone else in the community abides by the covenants, and I do believe this lot has already been given a variance on the width of their driveway. Enough is enough. Thank you for your time. And I do have pictures, and they have put other items outside onto the easement. There's a pump located out there right now. I don't know why. They say it's temporary, but it looks pretty permanent, like it's going to be hanging around. So this is just not acceptable. These are temporary owners that are going to be there. They're not going to be full-time residents. It's not acceptable. They should have built a smaller pool and thought about this ahead of time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Council members, friends, neighbors, and homeowners across Creek Lake Estates who are here. Thank you for the opportunity to address the variance application. My name is Tim Barnes.
Thank you.
I'm Wendy's husband. Okay. The variance application of Cross Creek Lake Estates at 108 McCanopy Path in Sebastian, Florida, for identification purposes, is application Lot 8, Block 3. As you may know, the community is a private gated community that has not been completed in its entirety as of yet, and being controlled by a developer, Henry A. Fisher. We do have one homeowner board member who is my wife, which you just met. Okay? That member, I'd like to address some of the issues of the variance application one at a time, and I'll be with the 5 minutes. The letter that was generated by Cross Creek Lake Estates board member, president, developer, is not completely accurate. He stated the board was in full approval of this variance application. That is not accurate, as the issue was never raised at the annual homeowners meeting on July 26th. Okay? July 26th, we had our homeowners meeting at 3 p.m. that day. That is the day my wife was appointed to the board. Okay? At 6 p.m. that night, they had a board of directors meeting for the new board member and the other board members that were there. I was one person that was there at the meeting. There was another homeowner that was there with me as a witness, okay? They never raised this issue at the Board of Directors meeting. If you look at the dates of the letters, those letters were sent out on those particular dates, July 26th and July 30th, looking for approval for this. By generation of that said letter, Mr. Fisher has put our community in a financial liability for his action without consulting the community as a whole. He had every opportunity to consult the community and ask their input and refused to do it. I have surveyed 26 homes in our community over the last 2 days to get a gauge of what the feelings were in the community about this problem. My results are as what they show. 24 people were outright no, and most of these people were on those weird lots with the curvature that had pools. And most of their responses were, if I can fit my pool in, there's no reason why they can't either, okay? One resident approved the variance, one had no opinion out of the 26 homes. Lastly, we feel that this contractor error, if it's allowed to stand, there will be no financial impact to the homeowner, as this is a contractor error, as stated from your department right here. They should be insured for this mistake, and the homeowner could be left whole, and the community will have no liability for the error in their judgment. So in the end, based on this community's feelings, we're requesting the City Council not approve this variance, request that this error may lead to a ripple effect in our community. Other homeowners with the same lot dimensions have found ways to install their pools within guidelines. This mistake should not be rewarded by the approval of the City Council. It sets a bad precedent for the future of our community. I thank you for letting me address you, and I do have a copy if you want to leave it for the record.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening, sir.
John Garrison, 307 Yearling Trail, a member of the HOA Association. The comments before me is my opinion, and so that will let it go for that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Address number 719, Yearling Trail, Sebastian, Florida, and Cross Creek Lake Estates. I did have my main concerns were if the HOA and the community endure liability due to this variance for any failure of the pool or damage to the lake, then I have to say that I'm against the approval. And I would urge the council to please, if you are going to grant this, I'm hoping that you get this letter from this homeowner signed prior to approving the variance.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Connie Del Tedesco. I'm at 105 Rawlings Path. I'm a full-time resident. I really disapprove of this. I don't know if anybody on this mayor or anybody on the council has been a contractor. I was a contractor for 30 years, my husband and I, up north. And trust me, we had to pay for a lot of our mistakes. And that's what you do being a contractor. You make a mistake, you're responsible. I feel that this pool company is responsible and they should pay for their mistake. It's as simple as that. We had almost purchased a lot in the community, found out that our pool that we wanted to build would not fit on that lot, so we had to back out and buy another lot. Simple as that. I just think you're going to open up, we're going to be down the slippery slope if we say that this is okay for them to do. Why is it not okay for everyone? Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Paul Abatey, 317 Yearling Trail. The contractor made a goof. It's an expensive one, but in the future, we may, pay the price for this thing. So please let the contractor repair it. Don't dump it on us. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it.
My name is Patricia Singwald, 101 Rawlings Path. I'm part of the HOA Association. I'm a full-time resident, and I'm here to validate what everybody else has said, that we were never notified about this. We were at the meeting. Nothing was brought up. There has been no notification, and I am not in favor of the variance. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Leslie Knight. I live at 107 Yearling Trail. I am a full-time resident, and we were never notified. And we are also against.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Jameson, 923 Yearling Trail. I'm also a full-time resident, and I'm totally against this variance as it can just continue to get worse and worse. Different items also. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else want to speak on this issue this evening? All right. We appreciate your comments. There will be no applicant opportunity, but we will ask for staff to go ahead and sum things up for us,
Mayor and
please.
Council, as part of the record, though, we would like to that a part, is that per Sebastian Code, we were required to send out letters to surrounding property owners 300 feet. These are larger lots in that subdivision. It turned out that it was 12 actual homeowners that received letters. One of those letters, though, however, did go to the HOA, of course, the address of record for their property where their tax bill goes. But per code, we did send out the required letters. I'm not sure what the covenants and deed restrictions, once that letter was received by the HOA, on how they had to notify the remaining of the residents. After consideration, staff is recommending approval of the variance for Joel Theron at 108 Micanopy Path with the following two conditions: that the profile of the lake slope remain consistent with the original approved plans, and that a complete release of liability prepared by the HOA attorney be executed and recorded before work continues on the pool.
Okay, and that's the completion of your thing, okay. Yeah, when you look at this, to me, it seems like you made a mistake that shouldn't have been made, but you made a mistake. And, if the city's not going to be harmed by this mistake, then I would be hard pressed to say that we need to cause damage or punishment for an individual who made that mistake. It's a couple of feet, right? Without the footer, obviously, they're not going to be able to maintain the pool, and they're going to have to move the spa, they're going to have to move the pool, and completely, tear that whole thing out. So I think we need to just think, what's the damage to the city in this, and what's the damage to the individual property owner who we're speaking about? And what really, and I'll ask staff, what really would that encroachment of 2.7 feet do to harm the stormwater, which St. John's have already said they're okay with, and the HOA has said they're okay? Would it change the slope?
I can't speak on that. I'm not sure engineering-wise. I do know that that second condition was just brought up this afternoon. The contractor and the homeowner has not been approached to sign this release. Now, certainly, if they don't want to take on that liability, that there may be some damage to the slope or something that may happen to their pool from erosion. If they didn't sign this, they couldn't continue on with that pool.
And it seems to me that the biggest concern of the homeowners is that liability that could be caused. And it seems like, and I'll ask the city attorney, if there is something that's agreed upon by the homeowner and the HOA, that could carry with the property in perpetuity.
Well, yeah, it would depend on the way it was worded, and I'm sure Mr. Dill, protecting the HOA, would write it, and I'm sure that's why they said that the HOA's attorney would write it, and then they would record it with the legal description of the property so that it would run with the land. And again, that's, kind of their own private dispute that they need to work out. Even though
that's kind of what I wanted to bring up.
Yeah.
I don't know how the city can place themselves between an HOA member and the HOA association. For us to even make a condition of our approval that he signed an agreement with an HOA is stepping into a realm that we don't belong in. It's between the HOA and its property owner. We have a letter from the HOA board that says they approve of this. So if they don't want to rescind this letter and say they don't approve of this, then I just don't think we, the city, we're not maintaining that stormwater lake. We're not cutting the grass around that stormwater lake. The city has no standing in this at all, except we're being asked to grant a variance, which is a normal process within the city. The variance that we're being asked to grant is to reduce from 10 feet to 7.5 feet the setback. That has nothing to do with maintenance of the lake. It has nothing to do with maintenance of the swale. That's between the HOA and the property owner. It's not a city function. I just don't understand how we could include that, even include it as a condition on our approval. I agree. The HOA they're the people that have the liability here, because they're the ones that are gonna have to pay for maintaining that lake. And so if this property creates a problem for the lake, it's an HOA problem, but that's between the property owner and the HOA. That's not between the property owner and the city. How can we even be involved in that?
Probably, in all honesty, the process as it probably should have taken place is, since this is the setback, the easement belongs to the HOA, you know, the HOA, the homeowner should have gone to the HOA first and gotten their approval before they came to us. Then if they wanted to enter into that agreement, said, well, we'll give you your approval so you can go to the city, but you have to sign this first, then they, like you said, they could take care of their dispute first before they come to us. Instead, we get a phone call in the afternoon of,
right. So
of
we
the
have
hearing.
we have two problems here. We have two grievous errors. One by a contractor that, quite frankly, he should be responsible for fixing, but that's between the contractor and the owner. The city has a normal process to grant an easement, to grant a variance on that easement. The contractor has asked for that. But the HOA process is entirely separate. We've heard a lot of input from the HOA people about the concern about liability. I would actually, if you want to know the truth, I would prefer that we table this and that we allow the HOA to deal with their problem on their own and tell us whether they approve it or not.
Well, the HOA has approved it.
But I wouldn't want to approve a stipulation to our approval that something happened between the property owner and the HOA. I think we're stepping beyond our boundaries in that.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would say to that is that we have gotten approval from the HOA for this. And
Yes.
then the second thing is the HOA has suggested as a stipulation for our approval, we put that letter in there.
But that's between the HOA and the property owner. That's not a city issue. I don't understand why we want to. I would be perfectly in favor of approving this based on the fact that it's here. And somebody should sue this contractor. I agree with that 100%. But I would be in favor of approving this. I'm not in favor of the city stepping between the HOA management and an HOA participant by including a stipulation that makes us enforce HOA requirements that they can't enforce themselves because their letter doesn't ask for that. I mean, that's to me, we're stepping beyond our boundary to do that.
Mr. Stokes?
If I could kind of speak on a procedural issue as well, as you all know, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, which means it's to be determined based upon the evidence that you've heard. You have heard no sworn testimony from the property owner or the contractor at all, because they did not show up tonight. So there's been discussion about how this was put there accidentally and this was unintentional. We don't know that. We have no testimony in the record at all, anything from the homeowner. So you know, if the thought is to table it or continue it to a future date, I think that would be one of the things that we would need to look at is to tell the homeowner or the contractor, you need to be there. You want this. You're the applicant. You need to be here and provide sworn testimony as far as what happened.
Right, and I'd be much more comfortable doing that than a simple denial. So I think the table, from my opinion,
yes, that's the reason I said table rather than deny. Table it. Give the HOA a chance to clean up their paperwork, and then do their own internal fighting within the HOA, not in front of the city council, because we have no standing in that whatsoever.
Right, and it seems like, and you know, you're right, Ed, that you know the biggest concern we heard was the liability issue, and that can be resolved prior to coming forward and asking us to approve this variance. So I would have to agree with Ed that there should be no stipulations to our approval. It should be yes or no. All of those other issues should be ironed out prior. I agree 100%.
Just to correct my position, I was told that the contractor is here. Hasn't stepped up to testify, but apparently is in the room. So, and I don't know if you want to hear from him or if you want to just go ahead and.
Does he not want to say something?
We can't compel him.
Yeah, I mean, the deal is, I mean, we're way beyond applicant, you know, and the contractor.
No, I understand.
Mr. Mayor, and you go ahead.
And I agree with the possibility of tabling it, but let's look at the other side of the coin as a homeowner. Let's just say I'm some guy that contracted a pool company. They came out, they did an improper survey. They built 75% of the pool. I mean, it looks like, what, $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 worth of pool sitting there? So we're going to punish the homeowner and say, look, we're going to table this, we're going to wait till you figure it out with the HOA, which could be a year from now, does that mean they stop doing further construction of the pool and the screen enclosure and just, hey, we're going to time out on everything till we figure it out? And then at the end of the day, are we really going to say, well, even if we don't approve the variance, then what? Someone's going to I mean, you're going to have to bulldoze that whole pool and redo it. I mean, you're talking tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, Councilmember Avino, there's three different options. There's one to say, we pass this thing with no stipulations, or we pass it with the stipulations, or we deny it. Those are the three options that we essentially have. Or we table this thing and allow them to handle it. And I think that as far as the homeowner is concerned, the option of tabling it and being allowed to work this out versus us flat out denying it would be a heck of a lot better. I agree with you. This is not the homeowner's fault, probably. And I agree with Ed that this is not the city of Sebastian's issue. So I would think that the homeowner would be much more amenable to saying, all right, we can get this thing worked out. Doc can work with Warren and figure out whatever they want to do from a legal standpoint, and then come to us and ask for approval.
If we're at that point, I'll make a motion that we table this quasi-judicial hearing and reschedule it for a, when's the appropriate meeting to reschedule it for? I'll ask the city staff.
I believe if it's tabled, we do not have to send out letters again.
Correct, if we put it to a date certain. Yeah.
So could we do it the next meeting, you think?
This is so that the HOA can work with the owner on the liability release before
Yes.
it comes to you?
Yeah.
We certainly will
We're not going to get involved in
forward that
that.
to the contractor and the applicant, yes.
Okay, so we could table it until the next September meeting, or?
My preference would be the October 10th meeting. I'd prefer it be the October 10th meeting, but...
October 10th's fine. So I move that we table this and reschedule the hearing for October 10th.
Just clarification, it'd be that we'd continue.
Or continue it. We continue it until October 10th.
Very good. I'll second that motion. Any further discussion by council?
Well, I guess that's why you measure twice and cut once.
Right.
You know? But I was also thinking it would be nice if the applicant had come here, you know, and then we had at least 9 residents speaking up against the motion. I mean, they were concerned enough to spend the time to come out, so I think the best thing is to table it until come back get all the answers.
Very good. Roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Kitchen?
Yes.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Mr. Iovino?
Yes.
Mr. McPartlin?
Yes.
Chairman Hill?
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you very much. And council, that'll now lead us. And so we've tabled it just so the individuals know this will be tabled, and hopefully you guys can work out some of the issues that are before you. And then if it needs to come back to us, come on. All right, you're welcome. I'll give you about 30 seconds to get up and go, but please do it as quietly as possible. Thank you, guys.
Oops.
Holy mackerel.
Starting to look like more of a normal meeting in here now. Right? All right, council, that leads us to the Rivas residential fence. I'm going to open the public hearing on that and ask the city attorney to read the...
Yes, variance requested from section 54-2-7.7C1 of the Sebastian Land Development Code to allow construction of a maximum 8-foot-high fence along a portion of the rear and sides of his property, whereas the code would permit such fence to be a maximum 6 feet in height.
All right, thank you for that. I will assume Ms. Bosworth's going to be handling this as well.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, do we need ex parte or all sworn in?
Ex parte and any witnesses first.
Okay, I'm sorry, my bad. Jeez. I'm just losing it. Any ex parte communication from board members?
Nope.
Hearing none. Madam Clerk, would you please swear in all those who intend to provide testimony this evening?
Do you swear or affirm that the factual statements and factual representation which you're about to give or present during this public hearing will be truthful and accurate? Thank you.
All right, now assume we have the applicant here. It is time for your presentation, sir.
I have a letter enclosed, so I'm not going to read that. And of course, the photographs and everything else are enclosed. What I would say is it's a request for an 8-foot variance, but it's not going to be an 8-foot fence, as in 8 feet all around. It's going to be 6 feet high at the house, and then I want the fence to be level all the way around. So there will be places where it'll be up to about 8 feet high. In the back, it's going to be more like 7.25 feet in the one side, and then I'm going to cut it so it's level and you can actually not see over it. If you look from my back porch, the neighbor behind me has a pool. If you look at what 6 feet high would be between our properties, it would be about to here, right, which means I'd still see into his pool enclosure, he'll still see into my backyard. I think that all I'm looking for is an actual functional privacy fence, and I'm not requesting anything beyond that. And I'm wanting a minimal variance so that it would be effective. From the street, if you look at, I guess, Exhibit B, you'll notice that's the only place it'll even be visible, the fence from the public roadway. And from there, it'll look like just a normal 6-foot high fence. So I would request that the council consider this and grant my variance to a maximal height of 8 feet. I think it was suggested by the materials that the back would be 7 feet. I don't know exactly how high that is. I think that's probably right, but it might be 7 feet 3, 7 feet 4 spots. So I'd ask for a maximal variance of 8 feet all the way around. But other than that, it's not going to be, you know, a fence to here. It's going to be a fence to here. Thank you.
Well, for me, it would be to here.
Okay.
So just so you know. All right, council, do you have any questions of the applicant? First, I'll say that I like that idea, and it was some confusing wording in there in the application relative to the how you're going to come up with the height going around there. But I think the maximum of 8 feet is important. Is it written in there at a maximum of 8 feet?
Well, we did visit the site. Definitely the side slopes are much deeper and noticeable than the rear, so that's based on our recommendation that 7 feet max in the rear and 8 feet on the side. I did want to mention to City Council, though, real quick, I know at our last fence variance at the last meeting, we had talked about changing the code. This application came in 3 days after that meeting. We hadn't gotten the code changes to you. But we did visit the site, and it was just staff's opinion that a 7-foot fence was only needed in the rear, but you certainly can make your motion as a maximum 8 foot and to accommodate the actual lay of the land as the fence is being constructed.
Yeah, I understand wanting the fence level. It's good looking fence. You want it to be level, it's going to be fine, and I would have no problems with it going to 8 feet. Council, any more questions of the applicant? Right,
Mr. Reeves?
You, sir.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
If you don't mind me asking, how tall are you?
6'2".
Okay. Point and tail.
Well, it would be like here for you, too. So.
Hey, I'm 5'11", go easy.
Hop over. Thank you, sir. Exactly. Thank you. Any more questions of staff or anything on this issue? All right, is there anyone in favor of this request at this time? Anyone opposed to the request for variance? All right, seeing none. All right, you have an opportunity to go ahead.
Staff recommends approval of this variance, maximum up to 8 feet.
Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of the Reeves residential fence variance.
I'll second it.
Got a motion and 2 seconds. And any more questions or conversation? All right, roll call, please.
Mr. Dodd?
Yes.
Mr. Iovino?
Yes.
Mr. McPartlin?
Yes.
Chairman Hill?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Kitchen?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, thank you, and I shall now adjourn the Board of Adjustments meeting and reconvene as the City Council. Council, we have one item removed from the consent agenda. What's your pleasure on the remaining items?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to pull item G, H, J, and O.
Whoa. What? G?
H, J, and O. And if no one else wants to pull anything, I'll move approval of A, B, D. Whoop, let me find my thing. E, F, if I can get all the way through it. I, K, L, M, N, P, Q, and R.
Second.
And this is Sesame Street. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
All right, Councilman Dodd, we'll start with item G, Resolution R-1824.
Okay, I pulled 3 of these items primarily because I felt like they just needed to be advertised as opposed to approved in the consent agenda. G and H are certainly those. G is the item in number G is to approve a 4% salary increase effective October 1st of 2018 for our Public Employees Association bargaining unit. And I just think we need to advertise that as opposed to approving it within the consent agenda and people not hear that it is taking place. And then also, that's the same thing with item number H, which is a 4% increase for the Florida Coastal Police Benevolent Association collective bargaining unit. And I think once again that just needs to be advertised as opposed to hidden in the consent agenda. So given that, I move approval of item G and H.
Second.
A motion is second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on these items? All right, seeing none, roll call, please.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item J, sir.
Okay, item J, I pulled that primarily because I had a request from a citizen about budget costs. They noticed that there was no budget increase in this. In conversation with the city manager, it turns out there's a very good reason for that because it's in it's 2019 budget. So since I was asked that question, I wanted to pull it and make sure that that question was answered. Also, I guess it's important to let people know that we are putting resource officers at the Charter Junior High School. And so the city of Sebastian is taking care of the schools within the city. And I think that's important for people to know that we're doing that. So that's just one more thing that our police department is having to do. And when I say having, I'm not meaning they have a problem doing it, but it's another one of those things that the state legislature is mandating that the schools do, and they have a problem doing it, and our police department has stepped up to assist the local schools in satisfying that state requirement, and I think that's a good thing we do. So I move approval of item J also.
Second it.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on item J? Seeing none. Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Absolutely.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Item
Okay. Item O is the only one I had pulled, not for informational purposes. Just to make sure, there is a bit of nomenclature issues on here. The change to request is not for $400,000. It's for $82,000, I think it is. The total amount of the project goes from $346,000 to $427,000.
That's
and
correct.
so the change request is for the difference between the two. And in the introduction section, it says it's a change request for $300 and some thousand.
It was a typo. Mr.
The other
Dodd.
issue I have with this, however, is that we've extended the date in the actual change order form. We've extended the completion date of this project to November 16. And quite frankly, this contractor has a habit and a history of not completing things on schedule. Well, I think the clam bake has a problem with the month of November if Indian River Drive is not finished. So my question is going to be about how are we going to make sure that we don't create a problem for ourselves around the clam bake if this project is still active and going on and there's equipment parked all over the place? And is it potential that because of the added work, we may want to slide this project till after the clam bake? I'm just asking those questions.
You want to?
Yeah. The November date speaks to the 20-day wait period for the application of the thermal striping on the crosswalks. The actual work on the drainage and the milling and paving will take place in late September and early October.
Okay, all right.
So it's just the crosswalks and the striping.
Okay.
The temporary striping will be in place.
All right, and we have adequate protection if there's a problem with that. So we have bonding on this project and so forth?
Yes, and if I may, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rose is not doing the milling and overlay. He's hired a subcontractor, Community Asphalt, to do that work, to free up his staff. His staff will do the storm drain improvements, which we thought were important to do prior to resurfacing that roadway. if we have ponding water issues that are going to deteriorate that roadway and create safety hazards, we felt it best to address them now. And those came up during a pre-con meeting with the business owners out there. They brought it to our attention and staff acknowledged it. So we moved forward with those repairs. We thought it was important.
Okay.
And the second part of that is we included the Oyster Point drainage project, which has been hanging out there as part of this change order, so we can get that project done. So we're going to get a couple projects done at the same time that have been kind of dragging around and have been overlooked. So I appreciate you bringing it up to our attention.
Yeah, no, I'm very happy we're doing the drainage stuff. It makes no sense to remill a road and not fix the drainage on the road. So I'm very happy we're doing that. I just want to remain vigilant. The Clam Festival brings more people into the city than any thing that we have in the city. And I just don't want any River Drive tore up. I want to make sure we're kind of diligent on that. So,
Yeah,
okay.
if you don't mind, I would tag onto that by making sure the contractor or the city or no one has construction equipment in the Capcorp parking lot or the overflow from November 1st through November 5th, because there will be a need for all of those parking spaces from.
Yeah. Okay.
Understood.
All right. Given that, I'll move approval of item O.
Second.
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none. Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Leads us to item 10, committee reports and appointments. Council, do you have any reports on any of your wonderful committees?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, me and Mr. Dodd were at the Metropolitan Planning Organization meeting this morning, and there's going to be, it's in the plan to do a lot of construction on 510 and also 66th Avenue. And it was brought up, I guess, several years ago. They're talking about where the Barber-Schumann intersection is there. I guess years ago they had gotten money to approve it, but I guess the city didn't want to go with it. But I mean, they're going to have all those improvements there. And I know Mr. Matson said he was willing to come up and talk to the city about what could potentially be done, maybe grants out there, because I think it's a time to revisit that issue, because those projects are going to be going forward.
No, I would agree 100%. I remember when some on council did, and it was enough to poo-poo the project.
Yeah.
I remember that, and that's very good. I think it is something that we should be bringing forward. Speaking of the MPO, doesn't the MPO oversee the Rails to Trails project?
Yes.
Can one of our representatives on the MPO, find out who's maintaining the trail from 512 to the North County Park? Because from the new addition from the North County Park out to Fellsmere is beautiful and beautifully maintained to this point, but the trail from 512 to that point is very overgrown and kind of creepy.
Wasn't that one of the slides they showed this morning, and they said that was their next thing that they were going to work on?
Yeah, well, I think the county takes part of most of it out the west. I think ultimately it's going to come back to us. Probably come down to us.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I just think we need to figure that out, who's going to be maintaining that trail, because it's not being maintained by the county right now.
Phil Matson would probably know that, right?
Beg your pardon?
Phil Matson would probably have an answer to that.
Yeah. Okay, so your guys are looking at it, they're going to be coming up and prettying it up. And a lot of that property is not in the city of
City manager can make
Sebastian.
contact to Phil Matson about, and just talk about that, and then we can go from there.
Okay, great. Yeah, I know a lot of that property is not in the city of Sebastian.
That's what I was going to say.
Right.
And so there's only a very small portion. I mean, the county has that property on 512 and the corner, that's county property. And then there's a little bit, I think, actually, no, there's none of that. None of that's on city property. That's all in the county. Unless you cross the street and from that annexed place in the back, there may be that section, but there's no trail there.
Part of that's in the preserve, though, isn't it? That's also maintained by the county?
And then the school.
And the preserve is what they were talking about this morning, that one of their next steps is to clean up the part that goes through the preserve.
Right, figuring out how they're going to do it, will it be pilings, paved, whatever.
Okay.
Is that what they were talking, whether they were doing millions or pavement? They still haven't decided yet on that?
I don't know.
Mr. Carlisle, could you contact Phil Matson and find out what the situation
I will
is
do
with
that.
and report back to us? Thank you very much. Any other committee reports? All right, thank you. Leads us to item 11, public hearings. We have the second reading on public hearing of ordinance number O-18-08, short-term vacation rentals. Mr. Stokes.
An ordinance of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, relating to short-term vacation rentals, amending the Land Development Code, Article 7, General Regulations, to establish requirements for vacation rentals and registration forms by creating zoning code section 54-2-7.22, providing for severability, conflicts, codification, and scrivener's errors, and providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is the second reading of this ordinance. There's been some minor language modifications from staff, but the background is we're preempted from the state from totally regulating short-term rentals, and so we've done the best we can and try to get them registered through this ordinance and to be able to manage how they're operating and to make sure that the city's receiving the bed tax. But there's some specific questions on the ordinance. I'll turn it over to Ms. Frazier. She's been more intimately working on it with those entities that have comments on it.
All right, thank you very much. Does anyone from the public wish to speak on ordinance number O-18-08? Yes, sir.
My name is Glenn Powell. I live at 12845 Bay Street in Roseland. I've lived in the area for over 15 years, and I bought my first property in 2002. I own about 20 properties, half in the city of Sebastian and half in unincorporated Indian River County. In 2002, one of my properties I did as a vacation rental. It was a very different time back then with vacation rentals. People didn't use the internet, mostly real estate agents booked them, and it was a perfect fit for this particular property. Over the years, the whole vacation rental industry has just boomed with Airbnb and VRBO and HomeAway and the internet and Craigslist. And I've worked with the county staff starting in 2006 when first came to light to them that I was doing this. Again, in 2012, after the state had put in the regulations where no municipalities can ban them. But then most importantly, in 2015 and 2016, when the county was dealing with the big issue of special events and a lot of the beachside properties in the county, which were disastrous for the neighborhoods. So I served on the Short-Term Vacation Rental Advisory Committee as the chairman, and we looked at, county staff and I looked at pretty much every regulation in the state of Florida, every regulation in a lot of the vacation areas throughout the country, and came up with what we thought were very smart regulations and reasonable for all people involved, the neighbors, the municipality, the vacation owners, the vacationers, and I think since this was put into effect on the county level, the issues on the county have gone to this, especially with banning special events, which was a big issue at the county. The regulations that city staff has pretty much lifted from the county, I think are very smart for Sebastian, and I think they've adapted them very well for the city. The big thing is, the biggest thing that they're doing is they're enforcing the state regulations. It's not the city of Sebastian that's saying you have to pay taxes, you need to have fire extinguishers, you need to have smoke detectors. This has been going on for years. And I remember Mayor Hill has said in the last meeting about this that this is a good level playing field for the hotels and vacation rentals. Well, it's a good level field for all the vacation rentals to all be legal, all be legitimate, and all collect the taxes and all put in the life safety factors that the state requires. They're all reasonable, and over the years, the industry has made it a lot easier for people to follow. There are now non-rechargeable fire extinguishers that meet the state deadlines, guidelines. There are 10-year smoke detectors that are there. It's just so much easier to follow. Over the years, the industry itself has changed, and my head spins over what has happened just in the last 2 years that we had the county commission. Airbnb has an agreement with the county to collect and remit the vacation rental taxes. So as a vacation rental landlord, I don't touch it. Airbnb collects the money directly from the guests and they remit it to the county. I don't have a choice. And if I list on Airbnb, I don't have a choice. I have to provide my state license, I have to provide my county tax registration, and Airbnb does the rest. And I believe that VRBO and HomeAway and the other companies will continue along that way. The industry has also put in a lot more regulations. They do verifications of landlords, they do verifications of guests to help protect the neighborhoods, to help protect the municipalities. And they've put in more things that, are now required in the properties. First aid kits are becoming more required. And, the next thing will be outdoor lights. And, it's just continuing. It's a work in progress. But I think the industry is really working with municipalities and coming up with the best way to handle this. And I think exactly what the city is proposing is a win-win benefit for the city. So I applaud the city for doing this.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else wish to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none. Staff, do you have anything to surmise?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I just wanted to point out that there were several questions from the council, and if you look at your agenda transmittal, you will see that one of the questions was about RVs and motor homes. They would not be covered by this ordinance. They do not meet the definition of public lodging establishments or residential dwelling units. Therefore, we would recommend that their restrictions pertaining to frequency of rentals for RV parks should be captured within the deeds and covenants. In addition, owner-occupied units renting single rooms are exempt from state DPBR license. I just wanted to make sure that we were clear on that. As Mr. Carlisle had stated, staff also simplified the parking definition, as I'm sure you've all noted, and we clarified the application process. So staff does recommend approval of ordinance 018-08. Thank you.
All right, council, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I've got one. We received an email, I guess everybody did, from the Airbnb people about some language pertaining to them paying the taxes directly to the tax collector. Did you guys think about including that, or is there some reason?
Yes, sir. I had several conversations with Airbnb, and as they brought this to our attention, I requested that they send us some type of evidence, or I also implied that if there was that agreement, as this gentleman has just stated, then the property owner should then be able to get proof of that or not have to pay those applicable taxes because Airbnb has that. That is strictly up to the clerk of courts to determine that and to DPBR to determine that. And I brought this to the attention, of course, of our city attorney, and he agreed with me that putting that language in the ordinance would not be applicable for the city.
Okay, but there's nothing in the language of the ordinance that would stop an owner from bringing you proof that Airbnb is collecting their taxes and paying them, and you saying that satisfies the requirement.
That is absolutely correct, yes.
Okay, that's all. All right, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of ordinance number 0-18-08.
All right, I have a motion, and I'll second that. We'll close the public hearing. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Being no unfinished business, we'll move to public input. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on something other than what is on the current agenda? And then we will move to new business. New business item A, resolution number R-18-16. Mr. Stokes.
A resolution of the City of Sebastian, Indian River County, Florida, authorizing the city manager to execute a supplemental joint participation agreement grant with the Florida Department of Transportation, FDOT, for the construction of taxiways C, D, and E at the Sebastian Municipal Airport, providing for conflict, providing for Scrivener's error, providing for an effective date.
All right, thank you, Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is the Florida Department of Transportation's portion of the funding for this taxiway construction. I think it's $219,464, and it's, as you know, the taxiways that have been completed have been a big benefit to it, and this is just one more part of that project. I'm a firm believer if we can get 90% monies to do projects, it's always a good thing. And so we'd ask staff to consider this agreement for DOT to fund their portion of taxiway C.
All right, council, what's your pleasure on item A? Got a motion?
Second.
Motion is second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on the FDOT supplemental JPA grant? Any questions of council to staff? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes?
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
14B, approve amendment number 2, airport lease between the City of Sebastian and Aero Services. Mr. Carlisle.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this, and I applaud Mr. Baker for reaching out and for this company to step forward. They're already selling avgas on one end of the airport. They've approached us, and Mr. Baker has negotiated a contract with them to sell avgas and to do some flight-based operations out of the main terminal. And why that's important is they'll have an ability to market that, and we get a percentage of that, and they're going to provide some concierge services and some other things to go along with that and some other portions of this lease, other portions of the agenda that you'll see later. And they're going to be responsible for maintenance and liability insurance and those things. So it's going to take some of the burden and some of the liability off of us and put it onto a concessionaire. But more importantly, it's going to provide a known quantity of income for us for some time to come. And so for any specific questions, I'll turn it over if you have any questions for Mr. Baker.
All right, thank you, council. What's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I move approval of item 14B.
Second.
Motion is second. Anyone from the public wish to speak on this issue? All right, seeing none, council, any questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes?
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank
All
you.
right, item C, approve amendment number 5 to the Presti Airport lease. Mr. Carlisle.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this is Lepresti's, I guess it's a good thing when we have tenants that are vying for the same space. So, and again, I'll let Scott address this because he's done a great job trying to divide up space and play referee between two businesses. And I think it's a good opportunity when we see people wanting and vying for space at that airport.
Thank you. Presti announced recently to me that they're expanding their business greatly and adding a number of new jobs to Sebastian. And to take care of this, they were looking to expand their office rental space. And so there's very little space available at the terminal building. And so we've carved out room closets, restrooms, anything we could rent. We've rented it to Lepresti, as you can see in the chart in the back of your packet. So we're charging fair market value on a square foot basis, and it'll help increase the revenue for the airport. But more importantly, it'll satisfy, at least temporarily, the needs of a very long-term, a good client that we respect and that we would like to support.
All right, thank you very much. Council, what's your pleasure?
Move approval of item 14C.
Second.
Does anyone wish to speak on the lease amendment to Lepresti Aviation? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes?
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
The motion carries. Thank you.
All right, item D, approve Fish Flying Corporation Airport lease at Sebastian Municipal Airport. Mr. Carlisle.
And, Mr. Mayor, this is an expansion of an existing business's lease into the airport terminal. And I think that at this point, we won't have any space left, and we've talked about building some additional hangars and office space to try to accommodate as this business grows in the airport, which is phenomenal. So if you have any additional questions for Mr. Baker, I think this is a positive step forward and shows that our airport is going to become more and more viable.
Yeah, I love it. Real quick question. Are we getting the best use out of that facility, or should the city sometime in the near future consider maybe constructing a small office building to accommodate these? Because these are mostly office-type jobs, if I'm not mistaken.
Mr. Mayor, next year we have funding requested and pretty much in place for another large hangar, Hangar D, very similar in size to the ones that are there now, and that'll have attached to it 4,000 square feet of office space, and so that will help remedy the office situation.
Okay, great. That's awesome. I move approval.
Second?
Anyone from the public wish to speak on this? Any further questions from council? Roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartlin?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. Item E, consider Sebastian Municipal Golf Course Restaurant lease assignment. Mr. Carlo.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We had put out a lease, an RFP for lease space at the Sebastian Golf Course Restaurant. We received 2 proposals, one from Bertie's and one from Pelican Diner, 4 wings. Since this agenda packet was put together, we did have one proposer, which was Bertie's, request that their bid proposal be withdrawn. And so the decision before you tonight is simply, do you want to provide the lease space to Pelican Diner with 4 wings, with the lease space at the restaurant and his proposed $2,400 a month in rent, which is what we have in the budget, and he has proposed in his presentation to staff to close, and the applicant is here, the proposer is here to answer any specific questions that you have. Proposed to move his restaurant location solely to the Sebastian Golf Course, and he anticipates his clientele will go there. He anticipates to bring his equipment and tables, chairs to that site, so startup will be minimal. He's agreed to the conditions in the lease and has brought forth some very good ideas. We'll discuss those as they come to fruition, but during the interview process, both proposers brought some great ideas to help spur use at that restaurant. Mr. Hepler had some great ideas, and I think that based on his presentation and what he's provided, I think that restaurant will be successful. Well, time will tell, but I think he has a good following that will follow him out there, in my opinion. And he has represented that to staff.
Great. I have some questions of Mr. Hepler, if you could come forward, if that's all right, Council. How you doing?
Say one thing really
Please,
fast.
go ahead.
Just to make a correction here in the paperwork, it was agreed upon. 2,500.
25. Right. I'm sorry, it is 25.
Okay, just making sure.
My fault.
We're clear.
Yeah, I'd have made that, don't worry.
Giving you $100.
I like them already.
Yes, sir.
So you know, that everyone knows that you're going into a golf course snack bar. It's
Yes,
a
sir.
great building, great facility. I think, I've seen what you've proposed in here, and I see where there's the potential or possibility for success. And I also know that you've done a great job of building a successful business in Roseland.
Thank you.
There will be struggles, I can just assure you,
Yes.
to make that rent and to provide for your staff. One of the things that I saw in your proposal is that you're willing to have a beverage cart on the golf course whenever there's golfers. That may be something that we want to make sure we consider not having in the lease, but an understanding that at certain times we will need that, because there will be times when that cart will just be an anchor. And so the success of your business needs to depend on how you can benefit from those things being out there. And if there's only 25, 30 golfers out on the golf course, there's certainly no use in having a beverage cart. Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, clarify, he proposed that the bid says if there's, I believe it's 50 or 100 golfers or more, he has to have it.
Right.
He's not required to have it if there's less. He agreed during our interview to do 50 golfers or less. If there was 50 golfers in a casual statement, that he'd put it out there. But the bid documents only required, I think it was 100 golfers, that he had to have it out there.
So no, that's good. That's all good. I also really appreciate and like that you're willing to work very closely with Greg out there, because Greg is our expert in golf and managing golf courses, and if you will lean on Greg through this process, I think that you'll find that you'll be successful. I would suggest that there was also the comments that it'll be in the lease that golfers can come in and tally up their scores.
I would like to set something up for them, yeah.
Okay, so
It's a two-way street, and respectfully, there is a section, when you walk in, if they would be courteous enough, and I'm courteous enough to give them that space, please don't go in my dining room where I have 80 tables set up for paying customers. But I do have a section right here for you with water and AC and all that good stuff.
They don't want to go anywhere other than that space. So
Right, I'm
the
just-
bar and that area,
Right.
and again, I'm not gonna tell you how to run your business because
sir.
that's gonna be on you. But being a golfer and someone who's managed golf courses for 30 years, I understand that, you know, there are certain things that golfers want and require. And I believe that the golfers that are at the golf course are going to appreciate you going in there. And if you lean on Greg, then I believe that you can be successful in this. I like
I've
your,
opened quite a few successful golf courses around here.
Yeah.
Over on the other side of the water. And the first one I opened, rule number 1 was no bean soup at the golf course. I had to go 6 months straight without repeating the same soup.
there you go. See? I don't think you're going to need that requirement. I think a good hot dog.
I understand that,
A
but
good
I'm
hot
just-
dog, a good sandwich, you know,
We're
fast
ready.
service and some decent prices, and we'll have some happy golfers. Does anyone have questions for the staff?
Actually, a good bean soup in Sebastian would be pretty good.
I'm all for it. Natural gas
You
is
could
the
call
way
it
to
the
go.
Dodd special. Call it the Dodd special.
Mr. Mayor, I move we approve the Pelican Diners proposal, and we direct the city manager to negotiate a lease.
Second.
A motion is second. I do think we have some questions
Yes.
from council members. Go ahead.
Are you still serving breakfast?
Yes.
More importantly, okay, thank God. I've been at your restaurant many, many a times.
Thank you.
And I'm, you don't know how grateful I am. At the time when my dad was still alive, you know how that parking lot is.
Yes.
It's a nightmare. This is, I don't even have words for it. I'm excited, so thank you for
No,
applying.
sir, I appreciate it.
that.
You're very welcome, and that's what we like to do and what we try to do, and something we want to keep doing for everyone.
I think the community is going to really enjoy it. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
How soon do you expect to be open, Greg? Roughly, not.
As soon as possible. One of my main hiccups is you guys are on propane gas. Right now, I'm on natural gas. So there's components inside the equipment that has to be changed over to get connection for gas. As soon as I can get in contact with 2 gas companies and a gas man, that's the biggest hurdle per se.
Okay.
But with refrigeration, cold food prep is not a problem.
Okay.
So once we hammer that lease out, we'll be up and running as quick as possible.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this issue, the golf course restaurant lease? Seeing none. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Dodd?
Yes.
Councilmember Iovino?
Yes.
Councilmember McPartland?
Yes.
Mayor Hill?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kitchen?
Yes.
Motion
All
carries.
right, thank you. Very excited about seeing that move forward. Leads us to city manager matters. Mr. Stokes?
Nothing, sir.
Thank you. Mr. Carlisle?
Just a couple items, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Had a meeting with Brightline, and to let everyone know, they're probably going to be starting construction of the railroad crossing over the Sebastian River in October. They're going to be actually widening the channels and reducing the number of pilings across there. But they're not anticipating closing for boat traffic, and actually the railroad bridge will be minimally higher, I think 7 inches higher than it is now. So that's going to be happening. They also approached us and several cities and counties throughout the Treasure Coast about a station. You know, I have spoken with them, and I've spoken with you all, that we don't have the city doesn't really have a property that would meet that goal. And I directed him that if there was a private property owner to put a station in, he's more than welcome to negotiate that. But I don't know that the city has any property to meet that criteria that he has. So I just left it with that. Unless there's consensus of the board, do you want me to look for something else and to bring it back to you? No consensus, thank you. The city of Fellsmere has filed a dispute resolution.
Keep them in South Florida.
I'm sorry?
Go ahead, sir.
The city of Fellsmere has filed a dispute resolution with the Sebastian River Improvement District. Though it doesn't necessarily enjoin us into that, on September 18th at 1:30, they are holding a dispute resolution meeting. I will be in attendance just to be there because we do now have property and we do discharge waters into theirs, so just so that we're well informed and I can bring that information back to you. And as we all know, we have some pretty severe storms hanging out there, so I hope everyone keep their thoughts and prayers with those up in the Carolinas. And lastly, I would like to thank Chief Morris and all of those, and I know I'm not going to remember everybody, so I'm just going to leave it with that. What a great job on the 9/11 memorial service. So with that, I'll turn it over to council.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Williams? Councilmember Iovino?
Mr. Carlisle, we got a letter addressed to the mayor on the 22nd of August in regards to do not enter signs on 1710 Laconia Street. You'll forgive me if this has already been addressed. Do you know where we're at with that?
What was it? I'm sorry.
There was a letter from Sissy Irwin at 1710 Laconia Street regarding do not enter signs. I guess there's 12 years she's been there. There's been 3 April 2009, a year and a half later another one, 2015, and then Monday night a car speeding the wrong way ended up in the woods at the end of her street in Concha. I guess she's looking for do not enter signs. I just was wondering if you'd heard about that or where we were with that. Or...
Mr. Mayor?
Please go ahead.
I have, and I've spoken to Mr. Baker about it, and there are do not enter signs there, and each one of these cases has been determined to be the cause of impairment, late at night, excessive speed. Unfortunately, the cars don't read, so when the drivers are impaired, so these were impaired instances, and I don't know what we can, honestly don't know what we
just
can
reach
do.
out to her and let her know that this was more an impairment issue, not necessarily a traffic engineering issue.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate that. That's all I have.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. McParland?
No, sir.
And I have nothing further. Vice Mayor Kinchin?
Nope. I also wish to thank the staff and everyone else who participated in the 9/11 service. It was beautiful.
No, looks great. Dodd? All right, there being no further business, we are adjourned.